Hello, everybody. It's Chris. Of course, I haven't been here in a long time. And of course, I mentioned before that my living arrangement is very restrictive in what I can do. So, when I can get on and I can talk about all kinds of stuff, I do, but it's not nearly as much as I want to. So, today I want to deal with a few things. Lately, actually, for the last few months, I and other friends have had dreams of big storms, tornadoes specifically, and they were not literal, they were symbolic. And I want to talk a little about that. Also, I want to talk about ongoing events that are very tied to political stuff going on with Trump, but this is not about Trump directly. And in order to do that, I need to read one of my latest blogs, which I actually didn't get this ready now, but since we're going to be talking about storms and ongoing events, um, it's all going to tie in, and I'm going to try to show how we walk through that and get there. So let me deal with the storms first, and I don't remember when it was. I didn't look up the exact dates, but it was back this summer. I had a dream that I knew was significant, and it was something to be watching out for. In the dream, I and my wife were standing on top of a tall skyscraper building. We were out on an open platform on the top of the building. The kind that has like it wasn't the Empire State Building, but it has that pointy kind of top. But there was also an open platform there, and we were standing out there looking down at the city below, and there were clouds forming. Well, there were clouds overhead, like sort of like storm clouds. Um, and at one point, I saw a big tornado funnel cloud start forming and coming all the way down, like it was forming. It didn't go all the way down to the surface, to the bottom of the city, the lower area, but it was starting to come down. And I saw this big, huge thing. It was really close to where we were standing on the building, but I knew the direction it was going. It was kind of blowing away from us, and I knew that as it formed, it was going to be the wind was carrying it away. So we were not in any danger. So after that tornado, I looked directly up, and the best of my ability to explain, I saw three in a row, one, two, three, same exact type shape, a cloud formation in the shape of fans blowing, turning, spinning like that. One, two, three in a row, and they were all spinning. Now, when you see numbers of something, especially that are the exact same type, it's not about it's there's two different things. There's the meaning of the symbol that you see, and there's the meaning of the number of them. These were exactly the same kind, and they were right in a row, one, two, three, as if they were one device, all in a little, whatever you call it, a thing like this. And there were three of them, one, two, three, inside that. Okay, so when I saw that, I knew that usually the number three represents something of God. When something has to do with moving air, that usually is a reference to the Holy Spirit. And the tornado, uh, being that it was a kind of a normal gray cloud type. There wasn't dark, super dark skies. I mean, yeah, it was a storm forming, but this wasn't so dark, like really dark skies. Usually, when there's something really dark that can represent the presence of evil or something evil going on, but this was a gray sky, yes, gray storm clouds, but it wasn't like this super dark, extremely evil looking thing. I began to realize, putting all that together, that this tornado was from God. Now, this was back in the summer. And I knew that because I and my wife were standing on top of the building, and it was very near us, but it was blowing away from us. And there wasn't like high winds in the top of the building. It wasn't anything like that. I knew that there was no danger to us on the top of the building, but I told my wife we need to get inside, and there was like a door. We went towards the door, and we were going to go inside. Like, we need to hide and get away from this thing. Um, Biblically, you can find passages, and I didn't do a big search on this. I wasn't trying to highlight this specifically, but biblically, you can find places where it says that God is telling us to hide, or He's going to hide us, specifically during uh, the events in Revelation, the tribulation time, that He's going to hide His chosen people for a time until His anger passes over. So I knew that somehow this storm that was coming was going to deal with, okay, let me deal with the city now, because you're saying, well, who's the storm effect? Okay, now we get to the city. Okay, being on the top of a high building is good. Well, it's not always good. It depends on context. This was good. I've been on the tops of buildings where there was no railing and you looked like you were going to fall off. That's bad. That usually represents pride. This was not like that. There was nothing dangerous about us standing on the top of this building. So in this case, it was positive for us. We were in a positive, a high place spiritually, and so there was nothing negative about that. In fact, it was very positive. We were in a good place, up high, away from the events that were going to take place down beneath at the level of the earth. Now, cities usually represent the busyness of the world or worldly activities. Um, you know how Jesus talked about in the last days there will be people. It'll be like the days of Noah, people getting married and conducting all kinds of normal life activities, and then wham, the end comes and catches everyone by surprise. So, but the point there is that the people dwelling on the face of the earth, and how many times I talk about that in end times prophecy, people dwelling on the face of the earth. That's what people down at the city level. In this dream, that's what it represents. People down at the city level where the storm was going down, the tornado was coming down, right down um, towards the bottom, and it wasn't affecting me or my wife up at the top of the building at all. So those who are dwelling on the face of the earth in biblical terms, that storm was intended from them, and it was from God. Okay, so this is when you have to realize that certain evil things going on in the world, say all the all the unrest going on now with the illegal immigrants and Minnesota, the fraud being exposed there, California, and other places that I've been hearing about, but I haven't followed up on everything. That's starting to look a whole lot like the tornado coming down in the city. And where is a lot of this unrest taking place? In cities with all this illegal immigration and the roundups, the ICE and all that, and all the fraud, billions of dollars being uncovered, and all these fraudulent false child care centers and all this stuff with the Somalia stuff and all that. So now I can look back and say, okay, and God usually warns me, not always, but usually depending on the severity of the warning, I usually get months or more than a year of notice before a thing happens. So this was back in the summer. Again, I didn't look it up to find the exact time. Um, but it's been several months, and now we're seeing this stuff coming out, and it's been increasing and increasing quite a bit. Now, in the big strategic sense, I've learned in the last 10, 11 years now that when God wants to do something to correct the direction of a country, he's like behind all the chaos. He's behind it. You don't see him because you think it's all evil, it's all this and that. Yes, that's true, but he's also working in the midst of that to uncover all this wickedness that's been going on. That's been hidden for years and years. And now this chaos is a result of him doing things. And remember, the tornado was from him. It wasn't from the devil. The tornado was from God. And so he's the one orchestrating all these evil things that are coming to the surface and causing just total chaos. Okay, what happens with a tornado? Well, it destroys things. It causes a lot of chaos. It destroys lives and property. And what we have going on right now is some of both, definitely. So anyway, if you're following political events, I do not, absolutely do not follow mainstream media at all. If you're a Christian and you follow them, you are there's something wrong with you in a big, you should have known better by now. You should know better than to be following that stuff. Something's wrong with you. I got to tell you straight out. I started learning years ago. And in fact, I'm going to read something here that puts things into context, what I've been trying to get to, because it ties all this together. The tornado, like I said, those three spinning things meant that this was of God in some way. And I haven't sorted out why it was three small like fans made in the shape of clouds, or the clouds were in the shape of the fan. I haven't quite sorted all that out yet, but just the basic version is that this is of God, and that number three is where you get that from. Okay. Now, not to jump around too much, but I've just had another dream just a couple nights ago about another high wind kind of a storm. It wasn't a tornado, but this was at a beach. There were people there at the beach. Beaches can represent a lot of different things. It can represent people just being out like a carefree environment. It can be positive or negative. They can be out in a peaceful place, like a place of rest, or it can be people in a careless like who cares kind of living the worldly life kind of thing. It can represent a lot of things. I'm not trying to get so much into that, but just to say that the setting of this dream was at a beach, and it was an ocean because I could see ocean waves coming in, just the normal kind of ocean waves. And there were very high winds. Now, the high winds were doing something very strange. And I'm not going to say I sorted this out yet, but what was happening was because of these extremely high winds, the water underneath the sand, like there was the waves here, and then here I was standing in the sand that was kind of wet, like when the waves come up and they make the sand wet. I was sort of standing in this kind of wet sand area. The waves weren't hitting me at all, but I was back in that kind of wet sand area. And from that area, I saw water, because of the high winds, I saw water being sucked up from under the sand, and it was floating, like levitating over the top. It was almost like a very strange, okay, when you have, like in some kind of a space scene in a movie, and all of a sudden, say in like a modern one where they have gravity systems and all that, all of a sudden, if they lose their gravity system, suddenly everything's floating. That's what it was like. Like the water under the sand, not the ocean water, that was still doing its thing. That was acting normal. But the water sucked up from under the sand came up, and it was floating like an anti-gravity effect, just floating there, just a couple feet above the ground, like in this. And it wasn't that big. It was like maybe a few feet wide and just a few feet off the ground. And it was just hovering there. And I started thinking, wow, that kind of sounds a little disturbing. The last time I had a big storm dream, not like that, but a really big storm dream was I forgot, 3 or 4 years ago. That one took a year and 3 months to happen because it was the big winter storm dream I wrote about. It's in my blogs. And I did like a video summary, the whole thing. It took a year and 3 months to play out. I had those dreams in October. I thought naturally the upcoming winter was going to be when this big, huge avalanche type storm was going to hit, and it was going to hit New York. Um, yeah, well, that winter I left. I was gone in Colorado, and um, that first winter, the way things happened, it was very chaotic time, and I totally forgot about the dream. So that whole year went by, no storm. The next year, it happened, and it was exactly like what I saw in the dream. It was literally an avalanche of snow coming from the sky, and it buried things so fast that people were stuck in buildings, couldn't get out of houses for several days, and that was in New York. Okay, so um, in one of those dreams, had a reference to a nor'easter storm. I don't know if this one I'm talking about was a nor'easter, but I remember doing a lot of research ahead of time when I had those dreams. I did a lot of research to try to figure out what was the storm and what could we do about it. Now, the first year went by and nothing happened. I thought, well, maybe I prayed the thing away. No, it happened the next year. You can't pray away everything. Okay, so it happened the next year. And I was saying that to set the stage for when God gives me a warning dream. Sometimes it's several months' notice ahead of time. It could be a year notice ahead of time. So all I can say is right now, there's so much stuff going on, a lot of chaos and all that going on, that tying that to my water dream where it sucked up and it was levitating like an anti-gravity effect above the sand. Okay, what that generally represents the laws of nature being overturned. And so what that really means is, I'm not trying to say there's something like that going on. That's not the point. My point is that something so chaotic, high winds can represent opposition, a storm, a personal storm, a city, a large regional storm in the symbolic sense, like we have going on in Minneapolis and in other places, a lot of unrest. So, okay, so backing that up, I'm trying to tie this all together so it makes sense here. Okay, so you see what's going on right now, and the water and this whole anti-gravity effect and the laws of nature kind of like being suspended. The water just started floating. That is kind of a cause for concern, because you got to say, what in the world would cause something so weird to happen? What would that be? Does it have to do with a natural world, like a disaster? Does it have to do with a natural disaster of a real kind? Not with something just floating above, not literally, not according to what I saw, not literally, but in a symbolic sense. Could there be something that's going to happen that is going to cause such a chaotic, strange, scene or such a strange event that people will kind of like, it'll just shock people. Could there be? Yes, of course. Yes, there will be. There's going to be stuff like that. We know that. Depending on who you're following, prophetic people, I follow them on and off, and sometimes not at all. So usually when God gives me a dream like that, I don't have any idea what it's about. And sometimes the prophets who are speaking about their visions, they don't know what it's about. They don't always know what it's about either. So I'm just putting that one out there. I am saying all this to tie something together because at the same time, some of you, again, I have to talk about mainstream media, and I've mentioned this many times that you really should know by now you're not supposed to listen to them or trust them. And I've been figuring this out for a long time. Um, I want to read something. I'm saying all that to kind of set the stage for something. I want to show you a video, and I want to read something from my latest blog because I'm trying to get the word out to people that are getting caught up in the lies, the US government lies and the mainstream media lies, which, by the way, in this case, happen to be working together. No surprise. Okay, you know what happened with Trump and the fraudulent elections of 2020 and all this kind of stuff, and all these, this voting stuff and all this. And it's becoming a lot more obvious now because the only blue voting areas, there's not many of them left anymore, really. And a lot of that is being tied to voter fraud and, of course, illegal immigrants and all that. Just pay attention to the right people. And if you want to follow politics, what's going on, I don't recommend any mainstream sources at all. Never will, never have, never will. And what I can say is I do a lot of reposting of things on all my social media accounts, mostly on X. Telegram, people just aren't, I don't have anyone on Telegram right now, but I use it all the time, constantly. But mostly it's on X, formerly Twitter. And there are certain people I follow there. If you follow me there, you'll see who is writing things that I'm promoting or commenting on, or I'm like reposting and putting my own comment, that kind of thing. You'll see those people there. And there are certain ones specifically that you see regularly on my accounts. And those are the people that I know are reliable. And some of them I know better than others. Let's just say some of them I don't know at all, but they were reposted by others that I know. And so I'll just say one is Praying Medic. I haven't had any contact with him in several years, but he's done a lot of work on what's going on politically and very knowledgeable about that. God gives him dreams about politics and all that stuff, and that's been his assignment. So I do follow him quite a bit, and others that he has promoted at different times. Not everyone, but just certain ones. So that's the starting point. Anyway, so now we're all leading up to something here. So you know what's been going on with Trump. You know how the FBI has been fraudulently going after him in the last few years, and this whole big concocted Russia hoax and all that, and the former FBI director was totally involved with that. So there's a lot of corruption in the FBI. I'm not saying they all are, I can't say that, but there is a lot of it, very deeply rooted, institutionalized corruption, and we know that. There is a lot of racism, and there's a lot of greed over money because this country has been run by a demon named Mammon. And that is a demon, and that's the name. And it runs the lives of most people. And it's funny, in God we trust in our money. That's not true at all. I'll tell you, even Christians, I found myself, read my Supernatural Entrepreneur series, found out myself that most Christians don't trust in God either. I know because when God pushed me out of my career, I had no ability to trust God and have any faith that he would provide at all. I had nothing. And I went to all the mainstream churches for my entire life, 40 plus years ahead of that. And I came out with nothing. So I've talked about this quite extensively. So when I say Christians don't trust in God either, like I'm telling you from my own experience, and that's really how it is. This demon of Mammon has totally overtaken everything. And when you see all this persecution and attacks against people, it's because, say, people like Trump know what's going on. He's not part of that system, and he's going to destroy. God is using him to destroy all these evil empires. And now you see RFK Jr., all the food truth coming out about that. And a lot of people there I follow on Instagram, primarily for a lot of that. Dr. Josh Axe, Eric Berg, Austin Lake, and people like that. I followed a lot of these people. increasingly quite a bit. And there's a lady named Food Babe on her Instagram channel. I think she goes by, oh, you know what? I can't pronounce her name. It's an unusual name, but she's been on with Dr. Axe. A lot of these people have been on with Dr. Josh Axe. So if you're looking for actual, real, reliable information about food and health and medicine and big pharma and all this evil stuff going on, start with, and he's got a ton of videos and podcasts, Josh Axe, that he does. So he's a starting point. Anyway, I've learned a lot from him, and I could say a lot more about that another time. Okay, I'm at least saying all this again, still leading up to something here. That if you've been following what's been going on with Trump and all this, and all the evil government corruption that has just been exposed more and more and more, which we were told by certain prophets, like I remember Larry Randolph on Sid Roth, he talked about this years ago. He said that there would be a great humbling from top to bottom of the entire government, and because of all the corruption that was going to be exposed. Kim Clement said things about that also, and others too. I don't remember all the names now, but those are just two examples of many prophets that have been speaking about this. And guess what? It's happening now. Didn't happen so much in the first term of Trump, but funny how Perry Stone made a comment, which there's more to it than this one thing, but Perry Stone made a comment analyzing why, prophetically analyzing why Trump didn't get the second term, why God didn't. If, like, I kept thinking, if God is really with Trump, how come he didn't get that term? Why? Because God was working on him, because he had character issues that needed to be fixed before he could be used according to what God put him here for. And so, it looked like everything fell apart. All the prophecies were, they just went dead. And I mean, it really was a kind of an ugly time in 2020, and following all that stuff. So, okay, so if you know all that, if you really understand what's going on, which I've had to learn over a long period of time, then what I'm going to show you next, what I say next, should be no surprise, because you should already know what's going on. Shouldn't have to tell you. And unfortunately, I've had people come out and listen to this stuff on the mainstream lying news, and they come at me and they tell me what all this stuff. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? Do you not listen to anything I have said in how many years now? And I'm not trying to get a big following, but if you're going to come to me for dream interpreting, which I've been doing for the last 10 and a half years, if you're going to come to me for that and you're not going to listen to anything else I say, I don't know why you're here. I just don't get it. And I had to tell people that straight out. So all this to say, my latest blog, U.S. Government Persecution of David E. Taylor and JMMI, The Real Story. So if you haven't read that, we're just going to do a little quick scan of that now. Okay, in August 2025, the global ministry, Miracle Ministry, I've been part of for almost 11 years, was raided by the FBI. Mainstream news channels immediately broadcast the incident because, well, the FBI orchestrated the whole thing with them ahead of time to promote their agenda. The raid was based on false accusations concocted by well-known evil people who have a long history of attacking the ministry and persecuting full-time staff. The reason for these attacks are rather insightful, and it is what I will deal with in this post today. Included here is video footage of the raid and first-hand testimonies of the violent and illegal FBI treatment of ministry staff who were taken at gunpoint and said to be victims, but I've never seen when a victim of what they call trafficking, a trafficking victim, when do you arrest them, zip tie their hands and take them at gunpoint and treat them so harshly that they end up being injured and still having injuries 4 months later? A victim? You treat a victim like that? No, the whole thing was a lie. And we're getting to that. Okay, so if you have only heard what mainstream news has said about this, then you need to hear the other side now. Okay, now I put a note at the top because some people have been forgetting the most basic parts of our society here in this American country. First of all, I said, note, in this blog, I exercise my constitutional rights under the First Amendment to speak freely about the truth of what is happening in our American government and its attacks on Christians and the beliefs that founded this Christian nation. Okay, First Amendment says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. I hope you paid attention to that. Okay, so now, my brief introduction, politics, mainstream media, and what I've learned. Okay, Proverbs 18:13, he that answers a matter before he hears it, it is folly and shame to him. Do not jump on the first thing you hear. Do your own investigation. Use your brain, use your critical thinking, and use the discernment you're supposed to have from the Holy Spirit, which I'm so surprised how lacking it is, especially among people that are in prophetic circles. Abominably lacking. I just, I saw a big got a prophet that I was following for a while. Won't mention any names, but if you go back and you've been paying attention to stuff I've been posting, a big prophet with a lot of very accurate stuff, especially about Trump. He went out, and as soon as this news broke about what I'm going to tell you here, he immediately reposted it. And I was like, wow, you didn't even stop to think. You just jumped off so fast. And that tells me something about you, by the way, mister. You have had an offense against this preacher for a long time. You have listened to the lies against him, and you are also racist. That's what you are. You're, by the way, he's white. He's white, and I'm calling him out. He's a racist. I'm telling you right now. And like I say, I'm not going to mention names. You can figure it out yourself. And I'm waiting for him to admit he was wrong and to repent of that. I'm waiting. Haven't seen it yet. But then again, I haven't been following him since I saw that. And I basically scorched him on a reply on his video channel after he did that. Okay. All right. So continuing on here. He that answers a matter before he hears it, it is folly and shame to him. Proverbs 18, verse 13. Okay, reading on. As I have discussed in a few previous blogs on this website, I have been following political and national events for several years, and I know all about the lies that mainstream news broadcasts every day. I have also been paying attention to political events, especially corrupt FBI activities against President Trump for several years, including the fraudulent election of 2020, when a person who was not the real Joe Biden was falsely elected. I'm no stranger to the lies that our government agencies have tried to force on us, and I have learned to trust none of them. I say this as a Air Force Academy grad and retired 20-year Air Force officer, Lieutenant Colonel, where I worked primarily in the intelligence field with experience in many live airborne intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance ISR missions. I first began learning about the lies of mainstream news about 20 years ago when I watched a video in an Air Force training course that showed how these news organizations cut and pasted false information together just to push their agenda. I saw this years ago, about 20 years ago. I began learning this. So some of you, I don't know where you've been. Hello. Okay, continuing. I also know that most of our politicians and big tech companies are run from behind the scenes by entities such as BlackRock and other trillion-dollar investment companies. Those wealthy elites are the real owners of our country, and they decide what happens in every area of society. Big food, big pharma, big tech, social media censorship, false election results, toxic food ingredients, false vaccines, in quotes. Spying and intrusiveness by AI from cell phones and computers is all part of a very big evil agenda to destroy our country. It's the manifestation of the Antichrist agenda. You should know that by now. Okay, when you follow the money, you find these companies such as BlackRock at the origin of everything. Okay, I'm not a big financial expert in all these things. I follow enough people that after a while, you just pick stuff up. You just figure out what's going on. You learn a little bit here and there, like in the Bible, here a little, there a little. That's how you learn. That's how I've learned. Okay. I have followed the events of the former FBI and other agency directors who are directly involved in plots against President Trump. Donald Trump has never been a part of their corrupt political system and is not a career politician. Prophets such as Kim Clement began prophesying 15 years ago that Trump would be a trumpet and that he was chosen by God to right the wrongs of this increasingly evil U.S. government system. There are many parallels between President Trump and Apostle David E. Taylor, and I see that the same corruption and attacks against both are happening for nearly the same reasons. And I wrote a post about this years ago, and I probably need to bring it back because this was back at a time I sometimes clean out old posts. And when Trump didn't come back in, I just kind of eliminated it, but maybe I should bring it back. Okay, so yes, I'm very familiar with the big picture of what's going on and how it ties in with a corrupt raid by FBI against Apostle Taylor and JMMI, Joshua Media Ministries International. From what I've observed, it seems like very few people really understand what's going on in our country. Unfortunately, the church is poorly educated and mostly untrained and unskilled to handle anything beyond the level of a spiritual baby. Many Christians are part of the problem because of their ignorance and childish naivety about the reality of what is happening in our world. Most of them do not know how to use their brain and ask the right questions and think critically about what is going on, as I've written in previous blogs, especially in my Supernatural Entrepreneur series, where I told you that I even got to where I am with the whole invention and everything else going on, all the other dreams, Marvel ability dreams that I have, and all kinds of unbelievable spiritual statuses and levels that God has showed me in a dream that I never thought I was qualified for at all. And he's been showing me all kinds of stuff, high level stuff, very high. So I'm just saying, I started asking the right questions way back in 2009, which I've expressly written about. Way back then, I started asking the right questions, and God led me on a path. And every time he gave me the next step of my journey, I went with it. I didn't reject it. I didn't rebel. I didn't ask my friends what they thought. I didn't ask my pastor what he thought, because most of them would have voted against everything I'm doing now. And because they're wrong, they're not doing anything. They got no results, nothing. They got nothing to compare to what God has been showing me. That's why I have an assignment. I have a writing assignment because God gave it to me so that my testimony would get out and be a living, everyday example of the stuff I've been learning from my global parent ministry, which is JMMI and Apostle Taylor. Okay, so continuing on. Because I do know what's really going on, and I never watch mainstream news broadcasts, I only follow certain influencers who I have found to be reputable. Again, I mentioned Praying Medic as one of several. Okay. As a result, when the fraudulent FBI raid took place against JMMI, as you will see in the videos, I'm going to post one. I'm going to show you one here. I'm going to play it. I never watched any of those reports. Instead, I waited to hear directly from the staff before accepting anything I was hearing. That is how you're supposed to handle information in our modern day society. And this is biblical. You go straight to the source and do not accept. You never accept accusations made by people who have already proven themselves to be a snake's nest of liars, like mainstream news. And so you're going to believe them, and you're going to believe the false accusations, and you claim to be a Christian. You are a snake. You are a liar. And you should be ashamed of yourself to being that stupid. I cannot believe anyone can call themselves a Christian and believe that. You are completely out of order. Okay, now we're moving on. Okay, for anyone to claim to be a Christian and have no understanding of what I've been describing here, you are the problem in this country. You are not living up to the standards set forth in the Bible regarding accusations, understanding the signs of the times, and correctly discerning the truth by the working of the Holy Spirit, just to name a few. Okay, for those who are wondering, yes, Jesus appeared in person, face to face, in a dream to Apostle Taylor years ago and told him all of this would happen, that he would be arrested, that the whole place, the ministry would be raided, that money would be stolen, that property would be destroyed by this fraudulent FBI activity, illegal activity. He was shown all that ahead of time in dreams, and he was told that God would allow and require that in order for the end times glory to manifest on the earth, which is what Isaiah said in chapter 60, the book of Isaiah. We'll get to that later. Okay, I have also discussed some of these things to a lesser degree in my book, Marvel Dream Revelations, and the new series I started last year, Sons of God Rising. Okay, now there's links and there's all kinds of videos here. Okay, the real story behind the raid. Now, JMMI has been sending out text messages recently and posting all kinds of stuff on Facebook, which you should be following. And here, I'm going to switch this thing over, and we're going to finally play this.
I get so sick of these weak threats from my enemies. We're gonna go to the news media. What is the freaking news media?
The FBI raided several church properties across the country this week.
Accused of using forced labor and laundering money to fund their lavish lifestyles. Take a look. This is David Taylor, and that's Michelle Brandon. They were taken into custody during a multi-state raid yesterday morning.
They say that they cannot comment on victims or tell me how many people were taken out of that home in Avila, but they say they will be cared for.
And I remember telling one of the agents, I said, I'm not a victim.
We had M14 rifles pointed at us.
Authorities accuse Taylor and his right hand, Michelle Brandon, of
Psychological abuse, threats of divine judgment.
There's no abuse. There's nothing, no harm, nothing that has ever occurred here.
When they put the zip ties on my hands, I can't feel my blood circulation.
They were sending agents to yell at me that if I did not admit I was a victim, they would not let me leave their federal custody.
Apostle Taylor loves this government. He loves America and he loves this country.
It wasn't about justice. It was about an agenda.
They have taken over 10 million.
When there were bomb threats made to the church, they didn't listen. They just turned a blind ear. It was the same FBI agent, Gershom, that has been the one to arrest Apostle.
This video posted about an African American pastor was posted by my own dad.
His name was Rick Frazier, my ex-husband.
KKK symbols.
Rick Frazier was paying Google to boost views, and it was hundreds of thousands of dollars. Why would there be so much hate in one person?
The Yowie burn their face to Facebook every single day. Jezebel. They draw people, they want to get connected to leaders. Look what Jezebel did in the Bible. Who's going to trust you if you can't even make a decision and stand on it?
Trust me, if I thought it was a cult, I'd get on here and tell you, it's not. I met Jesus here physically. I saw him walk. Yes, physically.
I see Jesus.
This is why the early church had such power, because they went through persecution. And the thing that produces the power is the shrine of our faith. Oh, you can come back from anything. If God is in your life, if the Holy Ghost is in your body, you can get up from anything, because it's not possible that it can hold you down. Just because they got the upper hand today don't mean they're going to have it tomorrow. Especially if you're fighting God, you're going to lose at some time.
This video is to confront the lies spread in the fake news media concerning the FBI raid that happened to Apostle Taylor, his executive Michelle Brand, and over 60 missionaries that are serving Jesus to advance the gospel of the kingdom. It was not just an attack on a church. It was driven by racism. It was fueled by greed. What happened was deliberate. The church is under siege.
Since being connected to Apostle, I've been having some visitations. And so Jesus was on the left side of me. He turned to me and he said, the church is under siege.
And now, the truth is coming into view, not only through the attack on Apostle Taylor's ministry, but through the exposure of corruption within parts of the American government itself. This series will lay it out plainly. You will hear it. You will see it. And you will decide for yourself where you stand. Don't let your pastor or your loved one be next. Rally with us in Washington, D.C. to stand against injustice and defend the freedom to serve Christ in America. This attack isn't just against Apostle Taylor, Michelle, and over 60 missionaries. It's against the body of Christ. Call 877 the glory if you're ready to stand against modern day persecution.
Welcome to the Modern Day Persecution Panel Discussion. As we stand with Apostle David, E. Taylor, and Michelle, we discuss how America is at a crossroads. The unprecedented raid on the ministry of Apostle David E. Taylor, as seen on major media outlets all over the world, streamed to millions on national news. It wasn't an investigation. It was an injustice.
This is the FBI. We have a search warrant. Come out with your hands up.
It's just a very unusual set of circumstances. So you're not going to be allowed to leave with your phone. You don't get to go back and get it.
I remember asking for the warrants 15 or so times, and nothing was provided until 3 days later. We were like, why are you calling us victims?
On August the 27th, federal agents came in with armored trucks. They rammed down our school gate. We had M14 rifles pointed at us. We were grabbed, and many of us were slammed on the ground.
So we were asleep that night, and bam, they just broke through the door. And I was walking literally naked with just a rope, falling off my shoulder. I want to just put on my rope tight around my body. They were like, no, don't lower your hands.
Trump declares this January that he will no longer tolerate the intimidation and harassment of Christians in their sacred places of worship.
The FBI raided his house. They planted classified folders on the floor of his office, as was admitted. You immediately turn off all security cameras. It's one of the greatest abuses of power in the history of the country.
Nicole Parker, former FBI agent, spills the truth.
And I basically represent the voice of FBI 1, the solid FBI agents who are just trying to do the good work, as opposed to FBI 2, the politically and socially weaponized agents. When we raised our hand and took an oath, it was not to them.
Todd Chrisley, American TV personality, shares his testimony of the injustice he faced from the Department of Justice.
And with an email that said, we need to catch a big fish.
And the response was, well, Todd Chris is the biggest fish in Atlanta right now.
I caught these prosecutors in so much misconduct, speaking to the judge, having ex parte communications. And
this is in writing.
She looked into our case. They saw the injustices. I just appreciate the administration looking into it and seeing the faults within our case, the corruption, and just the weaponization of the DOJ.
Being in the prison system, anyone that says that it's a fair shake, it's not. Because I dealt with young African-American males in the prison that I was in that were not treated the same. They were denied programming. They were denied access to certain things. I was not denied that, but we know why I wasn't denied that. And so I think that is a much bigger picture that we all as a society as a whole need to look at. I want to thank first and foremost my Lord and Savior, because that's who got me through it. Even though this pardon has happened, I still was convicted of something that I did not do. It could be you. It could be you. It could be any of you.
The FBI is now being questioned by the higher government, and their actions are beginning to be brought into accountability.
The FBI is the most powerful law enforcement body in this nation, and to have this body corrupted politically, such that it is targeting people of faith in this country and then lying about it to this committee of the American people is unimaginable. I'll be honest with you, I never thought this would happen in the United States of America. Is it appropriate for the Federal Bureau of Investigation to attempt to recruit spies or informants into religious institutions in this country? Is that appropriate?
I don't believe so.
Mr. Patel, would you commit to me that you will finally and officially withdraw this memo and make it clear that this is not only unacceptable, but that it is an absolute violation of the First Amendment that every American enjoys under the Constitution of the United States?
If I'm confirmed, Senator, yes.
There is a growing spirit of persecution and murder rising in America against faith and against righteous stance. We have seen church shootings and the tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk. We have also seen the attempted assassination against President Trump. Previous administrations have targeted Christians and will continue to, if not left unchecked. And now, a line has been crossed. The same spirit that leads to persecution and, in its final form, assassination, is the same spirit that has led government to bring its vast resources against the church. That is why the arrest of Apostle Taylor and Michelle cannot be ignored. If Christians remain silent about this case, it effectively gives the government permission to continue down this path. Watching government tanks and soldiers overrun a bold preacher's church and church-owned properties shows the extent they will go and how far they think they can get away with. We must stand for the truth, according to the Word of God. Injustice is being exposed.
They have taken over $10 million of church money, of gold, of precious metal, of silver that you all have blessed God's kingdom with. It has been snatched, frozen, and then seized. Oh, but when the enemy has stolen, when the thief has been found out, let him steal no more.
Despite the racism and injustice that Apostle Taylor has constantly experienced throughout the 40 years of ministry, he still loves and honors the Caucasian culture. And Apostle Taylor and his executive, Miss Michelle Brannon, they are beautiful people. So no, we're not just going to stand by and silently allow the media and the government to lie about this ministry and lie and try to assassinate their character. This is not right, and we will not be quiet, and we are going to fight because the government is trying to lock our pastors up for the rest of their lives. It's an abuse of power from the FBI, and this is motivated by greed and racism.
This corruption has a heartbeat. If the American people do not stand up and stop this through peaceful means, no one is safe. This is corruption.
President Trump, we are asking for your help. We are asking for justice.
And President Trump, we just thank you so much for what you have done for the Christian church and even for Christian leaders all across this nation.
Your track record is sure. You have stood up and you have helped the black culture in this country. And Apostle Taylor has seen that. He recognizes that. He honors you for who you are and your service to this country.
Now, we introduce your guest hosts, Kia, Kathleen, Joseph, Steve, Deborah, Eli, Paul, Alyssa, Mariah, Grace, and Henry. This is the Modern Day Persecution Panel Discussion.
Okay, so you saw it, and I actually wanted to stop the thing right there. It's not stopping, sorry about that. Okay. I am not an expert at OBS. So, okay, let me finish up what I was saying. Okay, now you saw the whole thing. This is a text message from JMMI just recently. Hello, Chris. They know my name. I know them. I'm friends with them. Hello. Said, hi, Chris. We're reaching out because Apostle Taylor wants to know how you are doing. We apologize for not communicating with you much sooner. Our media equipment was taken and caused significant delays. A great deal of effort has been put forth in an attempt to silence Apostle and the truth about what is happening to him so they can continue reporting false narrative and fake news. As a result, some have stepped back. However, it is only fair to give us a chance to share our side and allow yourself to hear the truth. Please watch the video below and tell us what you think. There's much more to this story, and you deserve to hear it all. Okay, that is the video I just showed you. There's actually 3 different videos. One is about 4 minutes long, one is 11 minutes, what I just showed you. And there's a much longer one, 1 hour, a full-length video documentary that shows the panel of people that were introduced there, and much more in-person testimonies of what happened, more footage, a lot more. And like I say, a full-length documentary. That's in the blog that I posted today, actually. And today is January 27th, 2026. And I'm just scrolling through here. You can see the whole thing on my phone. Sorry about that. This is the blog. So I'm just reading right from that. And we're almost done now. Okay, so the last part I'm saying here is you must take action now because your church is next. If you think it's stopping here, you're wrong. It is not stopping. It's going to continue. This fight needs to be won right now, right here, with this evil, illegal activity against JMMI and Apostle Taylor. It needs to be stopped now because if not, it's coming to you, and your church will not escape because you don't have the spiritual backing from God that Apostle Taylor has. You'll never survive. You'll never recover from that. So you need to take action now. Okay. Now that you've seen the videos above, you know that you cannot sit there and stay silent. I'm not. If this out of control and illegal activities by a government is allowed to continue, there is no church or ministry that will not be raided next. As you saw, the motives of this false illegal persecution by the FBI is based on anti-black racism and greed over money and power, which the demon named Mammon rules most of our country. What you see here is the exact same tactics used by Nazi Germany when they came in and dictated an Antichrist worldview on the citizens of Germany and then on the rest of the surrounding nations. This is a manifestation of a very hostile end times Antichrist agenda. If you do not stand with Apostle Taylor and JMMI now, it's only a matter of time before all Christianity is shut down in the United States of America, and the warnings of prophecy to America will happen. This country and the whole world is on the brink of destruction as prophesied for many decades. So remember the words of the First Amendment to petition the government for a redress of grievances. This blog and included videos is one part of our response to these illegal and out of control actions by the FBI and other U.S. government agencies. Call JMMI now and talk to the full-time staff and ask to be included on the weekly Zoom miracle meetings where Apostle Taylor is holding miracle services from jail right now, and people are actually getting miracles. I was on these Zoom meetings that have been held. So call and ask about that. And the number is 1-877-843-4567, or just go to the link in the blog. Oh, I put the number there and the link to the website. Just go there. I think they have a new short version now, jmmi.com or joshuamediaministries.org. Just go look it up. I have all the links on my website. Okay. Now, the glory realm is in the process of being released on earth right now in the midst of this gross darkness that the prophet Isaiah foretold. For behold, darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people, but the Lord shall arise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee. Gentiles shall come to the light, and the kings to the brightness of thy rising. Isaiah 60, verse 2 to 3. Okay, be assured this is not my last post on this subject. In fact, it's part of my previously initiated blog category on topics of the USA, politics, and prophecy, and that kind of thing. Take action now. Okay, and by the way, you need to get this book right here, Face-to-Face Appearances by Jesus. You need to get that, and I have the link right there, Amazon and through the KOGGC store site. Okay, that's what I wanted to get to. I was leading up with all the dreams of storms and saying that these things are all connected in some way. And some of them I don't know, like the recent one with the strange water, all this strange stuff going on. I don't know what that's about yet, but it's something to watch out for. And again, I remember I said that some of these storms are from God. God is allowing this. We had the whole big 7 miracle teaching from Apostle Taylor right before this happened. There was no coincidence that he taught how God will deliberately put his chosen people through very evil circumstances, persecution, tribulations, because it is part of his process. You don't get glory unless you go through persecution. Persecution has to happen in order for glory. It's all my Marvel Dream Revelations ebooks, or the ebook and all the writings and the Sons of God Rising, all that stuff on Marvel abilities. I've been talking about stuff like this for a long time, just not in this level because I didn't know things were going to be quite like this. I didn't know that, although in the generic sense I did. And that is, again, why you have got to have Marvel abilities operating in your life. And I'm talking about all the stuff I've written about: invisibility, hyperjumping, supernatural transport, multiplication, force field power, power with the elements of creation. I have all that stuff in mind. All you do is watch some of the videos, read my ebooks and blogs, and you'll see I have that. You're going to need it also, because without that, you ain't going to survive. There's no way. You will not survive the stuff that's coming. And but there's more to it. There's a positive side of Prophecy to America also, which I won't get into because I've taken enough time already. But that gives me something to come back to later, although I've already dealt with it. Okay, so big storms, a lot of very evil things going on right now, and very suddenly, rapidly escalating. Okay, tornadoes, remember what I said about living down on the surface of the dwelling on the face of the earth versus being up high and all that kind of thing. Okay, remember, so still doing dreams, but not a whole lot lately. I haven't had a lot of people send me them. I had some issues with my website as usual, without having any regular income at all and living totally by faith on almost nothing. I wasn't able to, until yesterday, I wasn't able to pay the $100 renewal fee for my website. $100, a big deal. Is that to you? Well, for a lot of people, $100 is nothing, but for me, it's everything. So, you know, it took me the last couple months just to get my website back up and running again, supernaturalscience.com. So that pretty much takes care of everything. I've been wanting to do podcasts and videos, but my living arrangement, as I said before, is not conducive to that at all. Living in a tiny little cramped little space, living on nothing, basically almost nothing. It just makes it very hard to do this. So anyway, I think that's all for today. So thanks for watching. And if you contact me, great. I hope you're paying attention to what I'm saying. I'm still handling dreams if you want to. And that's all. Thanks for watching. God bless.